Hey everybody, this is the third of three chunks of the guest lecture about connections between words and music, American literature and music. And thanks for coming back. And this third is going to focus on the second of the two original American voices Emerson called for. Um, Walt Whitman, um, to the second of the 19th century poets who answered his Emerson's call. And again, there are some sample Whitman poems on the handout, and one poem for the end of this part of the lecture by the African American poet Langston Hughes. So pull that handout out or keep it handy, and we'll be referring to it when I talk a little bit about some of Walt Whitman's poems about music, about sound. All right, let's get going and focus in on Whitman this time. Again, like with the Dickinson section, I wanted to share with you a couple of websites that have really good materials and resources about Walt Whitman in case you're interested in knowing more. The one on the left is like the Dickinson archive. It has actual photographs, holographs of Whitman's handwritten manuscript pages, along with a lot of materials about studying his biography and his printed texts and things. So that's a good site. I'm not going to click out of here. I fear I'll never come back. And then the Classroom Electric, the Whitman section especially. Oops, I see a typo there. Should be a close quote. Sorry. Also, there's a Dickinson section on that site, but it's a collection, kind of a portal site of websites and digital projects about Whitman and his times. The ones that I find particularly interesting are the ones about Whitman and the Civil War, but it's a fun place to poke. And there are also some Dickinson sites as well, in case you want to think some more about Ms. Emily. Okay. Wanted to talk, okay, come on. There we go. About Whitman's ideas about music and poetry, and a little bit about his experience and his philosophy. He was basically self-educated and well-educated and well-read, and knew a lot about European musical traditions. And it turns out that he knew a lot about and was a real opera buff. And when opera singers would come and tour in America, he was thrilled. You know, he'd go and hear the famous Italian singers, opera stars. And he even served time, as I think I mentioned in the previous show, or the first part of the recording. He was an opera critic, and he had some things to say about Jenny Lind, for instance, when she came to tour. Despite his love and passionate love for opera, European music, he came to prefer American music in part because he believed that the music that was original to the United States was the most authentic, because it represented the American people and democratic ideas, and his poetry is all about that, using American subjects and themes. So he was well versed in popular folk and classical American music, and really championed some of the popular performers of his time in 19th century America. And whoops, I'm forgetting to click. So he, like Emerson and Dickinson in her Robin poem, was championing American music. Been talking too long today. Here, in case you want to follow the link, is a good short article about Whitman and music, and it really sets things up well if you want to know more about it. All right, let's move on. Maybe. There we go. I thought you'd be interested in some of Whitman's musical favorites in popular American, 19th century American music, particularly. And the first, I don't have an image because I wanted to use this quote, was the Hutchinson family. Remember Dickinson collected Hutchinson sheet music? And these were the group of siblings. I don't know how many, there were lots of them. We read about them and kind of forgotten a lot of the details, but they were really popular. They gave concerts, and then they sold their sheet music. And this is a little quote from that article about Whitman and music. He valued the fact, Whitman, that the Hutchinsons sang about common American experience in the ordinary lives of average individuals. In the Eagle, which was a newspaper, the Brooklyn Eagle, he noted that they are, quote, true sons of the old Granite State, which was New Hampshire. They are Democrats. Their signature song, The Old Granite State, gave all 13 siblings names along with their convictions and political views. The premier song of Whitman's favorite group then made singing oneself and singing America commonplace in the public arena. So that quote hits at all the themes. They were Democrats with a small d. They were celebrating freedom, democracy, American values. And so they were really on the top of Whitman's list of popular performers. The minstrel songs in the middle, I just pulled one image from a poster from the Garrick Theater in New York. Minstrel songs, we read and learned about that tradition earlier in the course, were also among Whitman's most popular, or things he liked best. And he even went to, he attended a lot of the minstrel performances. He lived in New York City for a lot of his life. And so those kinds of performances, not even the touring companies, only were available to him. One of his other favorites, the slide would only allow for 3, there were more, but this will give you an idea, was old Stephen Foster, who I know you remember fondly from earlier in the course. And Whitman, the song he especially liked was Old Folks at Home, Way Down Upon the Swanee River, the first line, the famous lyric. And that became a national favorite in 1852, and everybody knew it. And Whitman knew it and loved it. And I got to reading some things that suggested that he might have known and or helped promote Stephen Foster. I didn't have time to follow that lead. So if you're interested, that might be a link that worth pursuing, or I could have made it up. Okay, those were 3 of his musical favorites. All 3 were popular artists. They used American themes and ideas. They weren't elite or elitist. They were democratic. And so they were right up Whitman's alley because his poetry was doing the same thing. Okay, in your word handout document, there are 3 Whitman poems about music. Whitman's poems are much longer on average. Some go on and on and on and on and on. So wanted to just talk briefly about these 3 pieces, and you can read more of the details on your own time if you wish. The first poem actually is readable, because it's one of his shortest poems, and I thought that I could read it badly. I'm not the best reader of poetry, but I'll give it a crack, and then we can talk. I can talk a little bit about it. Okay, give me a minute here. All right. This is called "I Hear America Singing." Gotta find my handout. All right. I hear America singing, the varied carols I hear, those of mechanics, each one singing his as it should be, blithe and strong. The carpenter singing his as he measures his plank or beam. The mason singing his as he makes ready for work or leaves off work. The boatman singing what belongs to him in his boat. The deckhand singing on the steamboat deck. The shoemaker singing as he sits on his bench. The hatter singing as he stands. The woodcutter's song, the plowboy's on his way in the morning, or at noon intermission, or at sundown. The delicious singing of the mother, or of the young wife at work, or of the girl sewing or washing. Each singing what belongs to him or her, and to none else. The day what belongs to the day. At night the party of young fellows, robust, friendly, singing with open mouths their strong, melodious songs. You can hear how different Whitman's style is from Dickinson's, the little riddly, enigmatic, kind of weird, dashy poems that I read, or that we talked about in the second part of the talk. Notice that he's celebrating the variety of kinds of work in America, and everybody's singing at their work. I'm glad he's got men and women in there. Unlike other poems, I don't recall, I'd have to read it again, that he's got minority voices in there, but he does in other places write of the experiences of slaves and if he didn't this time, he does other places. Notice that all of this music, the common sounds of people singing while they work, are music to his American ears. The everyday songs of America, the everyday sounds, the everyday workers are part of one rich American song. That sounds kind of hokey, but that's the idea he's getting at, I think. Okay, the second example that you have is one section from Whitman's most famous long poem, Song of Myself. He wrote it in 1855, but he kept revising it and many of his other poems, and he lived a long time, so there are many versions. Section 26 focuses on the poet, the I, the speaker, listening. And you can read it through on your own time. I'm going to try in a minute on another slide to play you a recording of it, but that hasn't worked terribly well always. I'll give it a crack. But the things that I wanted to point to in section 26 from Song of Myself is how many musical words he uses, the vocabulary, different kinds of musics, different kinds of instruments. It starts out, now I will do nothing but listen. And later on, I hear bravuras, is that how you say that? Of birds. He talks about the human voice. He talks about the sounds of city and sounds out of the city. So not just music, but the music of everyday life, the sounds in America. Later on in the poem, he lists a lot of different kinds of music. The steam whistle, the slow march, the violoncello, cornet, chorus, grand opera, a tenor, large and fresh as the creation fills me, the trained soprano, the orchestra whirling me wider, on and on he goes. You'll notice that he likes to list, and he likes to try to write poems in which everything, it's all encompassing, and it's celebratory. That's a hard word to say. Okay. Long lines, few rhymes, you get my drift. The third example is a longer poem, and I went ahead, since I could put a digital document up and not like kill a tree, I went ahead and put the whole thing up, and it goes on for some pages here. I apologize for that. There are 15 sections. And it's called Proud Music of the Sea Storm, and it was published in the 1869 edition, February edition of the Atlantic Monthly, a magazine that still exists. This poem is interesting to me, and maybe to you, because the I is writing about his experiences with music. So it's kind of biographical or autobiographical. And the frame for the poem, it's a long poem, is he's dreaming about music. He's hearing and remembering music in his dreams. His lonesome slumber chamber, that's the frame. So the whole middle part of the long poem is what happens in his dream, all the musical kinds of adventures that he has. And then at the end of the poem, I've got to find it. It's many pages back here. Section 15 starts, then I woke softly and pausing, questioning a while the music of my dreams. The middle section, I just wanted to point to a couple of the stanzas. Stanza 3, now loud approaching drums, it starts. Then it ends, that stanza, the sobs of women, the wounded groaning in agony, perhaps a reference to the Civil War. Section 4, the great organ sounds. There's a link with Dickinson's organ poem. All the world's musicians, love chants, hymns, the music of the winds and the woods and the waves. It goes on and on and on. Section 6, the music of his mother's voice, singing lullabies and hymns. The bird song, oh lordy, it goes on. Songs of current airs, German airs, Irish ballads, Italy's peerless compositions, Italia's peerless compositions. Lucia's crazed eyes, a reference, I think, to the opera Lucia de Lammermoor, is that how you say it? Operas, odes, symphonies in section 9. Meyerbeer, he was in our other course. Mozart's Don Juan, Gounod's Faust, the dance music of all nations, the chants of instruments all over the world, Egyptian harps, Nile boatmen, Chinese hymns, the flutes of the Hindu bards, the African drums, Luther's Ein Festeburg is Unsergott, the Angus Day or Gloria in Excelsis, on and on and on and on and on. So I won't read any more of it to you, but you can see what he's trying to do is to celebrate music in all its forms and all the things, all the musical influences on the eye, the speaker in the poem. I thought it was kind of cool, but it does go on. Okay, now I'm going to try to play a recording of somebody reading the 26th section of Song Myself. It may be an epic fail. We'll see.
Now I will do nothing but listen, to accrue what I hear into this song, to let sounds
Nope,
contribute.
It does not want to work
I hear
on any music from a website. YouTube seems to work okay. Follow that link and listen to a good reader read that 26th section about Sounds of Song of Myself if you get a chance. I apologize for the technical glitches. No time, energy, or expertise to figure out why. Who knows? All right. Doing my best from quarantine. All right, let's move on. Finally, wanted to include one poet who isn't either Whitman or Dickinson, but who carries the tradition of being an original American voice forward into the 20th century and writes about American music. And that is the poet Langston Hughes. And the last poem on your handout is Hughes's famous poem that's an answer to Whitman called I Too. And this also one can read very quickly and well, not so well, but I'll try. Langston Hughes was part of the Harlem Renaissance in the late 1920s, early 1930s. And there is a YouTube link there, a short video featuring the poet himself commenting on it. I'm going to try to play it, but in case that doesn't work, I'll just read it to you quickly, and you can kind of see how he's answering Whitman and Dickinson with the idea of singing America. It's called I Too by Langston Hughes. I too sing America. I am the darker brother. They send me to eat in the kitchen when company comes, but I laugh and eat well and grow strong. Tomorrow I'll be at the table when company comes. Nobody'll dare say to me, eat in the kitchen then. Besides, they'll see how beautiful I am and be ashamed. I too am America. I wanted to try to take it just out of the 20th century, or into the 20th century, out of the 19th century a little bit. Okay, I'm going to try to play the link of the voice you'll hear is Langston Hughes, the poet himself, commenting and then reading. And Hughes, died in 1967, so this is from the 1960s. So some of the language he uses may sound dated, but he's commenting on his own poem. Let's see what happens here.
For a whole race of people freed from slavery with nothing, without money, without work, without education, it has not always been easy to hold fast to dreams. But the Negro people believed in the American dream. Now, since almost 100 years of freedom, we've come a long ways. But there is still a long way to go for the Negro and democracy. This is a poem called I Too. I too sing America. I am the darker brother. They send me to eat in the kitchen when company comes, but I laugh and eat well and grow strong. Tomorrow I'll be at the table when company comes. Nobody'll dare say to me, eat in the kitchen then. Besides, they'll see how beautiful we are and be ashamed. I too am America.
U lag midden op een akker in Polen toen u
I've created a monster. My playlist was going to continue. Oh, okay. Well, I heard that, and I hope you did. And I wanted to end with that, just kind of wrap back around to the idea of American voices, American words, American music, kind of link it all together. And I appreciate your listening. I hope everybody's doing well, sheltering in place, and coping okay with online learning. I know it's not the same as being together, but thank you for inviting me, Dr. B, to be a guest. And I hope that you found some of the materials helpful, useful, interesting. Till next time, have a good rest of the day. Bye bye.